Hi, I'm Benjamin Alexander, and you're watching Tallawah TV with Crystal Davis.
Benjamin, again, thank you so much for blessing me with a moment of your time. I know your schedule is hectic, and I definitely appreciate you squeezing me in.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
6 years ago, you decided to pick up skiing. Where'd you get this fearless mindset from?
Yeah, I think I've always had it. I've loved the sensation of speed. I've loved the feeling of adrenaline. I've always been adventurous. Always took risks that other people thought were absolutely careless and unfounded in any sort of logic or ration. But really, perhaps I just applied a different metric and calculation to these risks. So it's just, I don't know, it's always been there.
It's quite interesting. What inspired you to say, you know what, let me put aside the DJ decks and turn to skiing?
Well, it's quite a complicated question to answer simply, but the DJing came to the end of its shelf life. I performed all around the world, across five continents and in over 30 countries, and was keen to do something different with my life. The thing about DJing is that your crowd, your customers, always stays around about the same age, mid 20s. So in my mid 20s, that was great. In my early 30s, that was great. In my mid 30s, I started to see a pattern emerging, and I didn't want to wake up one day in my mid 40s and still be hanging around with those in their mid 20s. And so decided that it was time to do something else. I'm stuck in the same situation now in my late 30s, hanging around with those in their early 20s, the ski racers, but that wasn't the intention. But really, I went to the Olympics in 2018 and noticed that there was only three athletes in representation for Jamaica, a country that's a powerhouse in the summer games, and just thought to myself, perhaps there's an opportunity to do something new and something different there. And so I've spent the last 3 years, in particular the last 2 years, at this full time in getting to the games.
Aside from, you touched on the obvious fact there with Jamaica being icons within their rights at the Summer Olympics, we can think of Asafa, we can think of Usain, we can think of Shelly-Ann, we can think of Elaine. The list could just go on and on and on. Now, for everyone out there who might not be aware, you're born to a Jamaican father. So aside from what you could have seen at the Summer Olympics, what is it about the black, gold, and green that you could look at and say, you know what, I want to represent Jamaica?
Look, Jamaica has an incredibly powerful voice on the world stage. It's this tiny island of 2.7 million inhabitants in the Caribbean that somehow dominates. It has a dominating influence on culture as that pertains to music and to fashion, and also as that pertains to sporting exploits, particularly those of track and field, right? It's a complete powerhouse. And so to kind of be a part of that just has an allure that's far more interesting, I think, than nearly any other country. And we're out here as the small Jamaican contingent of seven athletes, including the male reserve bobsledder. And the pins that are exchanged, you can see I'm wearing a USA one here and a GB one and a Cyprus one. It seems as though the Jamaican pin is the most sought after one because everyone just associates the island with this cool vibe and this like there's something chic about it. And it's hard to explain. I really haven't figured out what the magic source is, but maybe that's where the magic lies, that it's difficult to understand, but you just know it's a thing.
Absolutely, you're definitely right there in terms of powerhouse. And I think we have that natural attractiveness. Maybe you can call it a natural magnet. We tend to pull people towards us in a positive way. You know, how do you mentally prepare yourself for the historic moments that awaits? Because, unlike DJing, much respect to DJing, you're probably performed in front of hundreds of people at a time. But with the Olympics, literally the whole world will be watching you.
Yeah, look, I've performed in front of thousands, maybe as many as 5 to 10,000 people as a DJ, but that's nothing in comparison to the number of eyeballs that we're watching at the opening ceremony, and will be watching when I perform this coming Sunday. There were definitely, butterflies and nerves in my stomach, a feeling I hadn't felt in quite some time when I walked out into that stadium last Friday holding the flag. The two things are quite similar, though. You have to kind of get yourself into a mindset and be ready to perform. And so coming into this as someone who has been the center of attention in front of a room of 100 or several hundred or a couple of thousand people gives me an advantage in that I'm used to this performance type mindset more so than the athletes that are probably much better performers than I am. So there are some similarities for sure.
though the games for you hasn't gotten on the way in terms of the competitive element, you are in a lot of people's eyes an absolute inspiration. So how does it feel to know that you have single-handedly cemented your name in Jamaica's history books for all the right reasons?
Yeah, it's incredible. Look, I think I'm the 14th or the 15th person to ever qualify for the Olympics for Jamaica in the winter variant of the Olympics. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just incredible to follow in the footsteps of Dudley Stokes and his team in 1988. And of course, the story that was immortalized by Disney in the film Cool Runnings, to follow in that legacy and hopefully to begin a legacy of our own now in skiing and snowboarding just feels incredible. And it's something that I'm really, really keen to focus on. I'm not going to set the world on fire with my performance. It is impossible for someone that started skiing at 32 to be able to compete with the people that have been skiing since the age of 2 and have had millions of dollars invested into their performance over the last 10, 15 years to get them to where they are. This is not a Cinderella story. There's some reality to the fact, even though what I've done already is quite phenomenal. But really, it is about inspiring the next generation, as you say, about inspiring people of color and minorities and people from low social economic backgrounds like mine. We come from a working class family, nowhere near any mountains, but still have managed to achieve this. So I hope that this begins a legacy of its own with Jamaicans on skis and snowboards.
It's quite interesting there because you touched on something that I think is so important in terms of the economic side of things. When you speak of economics, I'm thinking of how do you even afford your gears if you come from backgrounds like ourselves? And we know that, globally, although we do shoot well above our expectations and achieve greatness that's just unimaginable, how does someone in Jamaica look and say that I want to be the next Benjamin? But unfortunately, I can't afford it because you are, like I've said before, you're an inspiration, you're a pioneer. We're never ever going to get another pioneer in that regard, but we might get the next generation that you speak of that might go on to win gold. But before they can win gold, where do they start?
Yeah, look, that's a great question, and thank you for the compliments. You have to split this up into two parts. You have to understand that there are 2.7 million Jamaicans on the island of Jamaica, but there are 2 million Jamaicans across the United Kingdom, the United States, and Canada. So the first part of this story is inspiring more of those Jamaicans in the diaspora, people that are much closer to mountains and winter sports than anyone in Jamaica is. Inspire those people to get onto skis and snowboards. And once the country starts to send 10 or 12 athletes on skis and snowboards, and once the sponsorship dollars start to roll in, once the interest in Jamaican winter sports starts to build so that there's financial support, then we can go to the Jamaicans on the island and start to train people and bring them to parts of the world that are known for their sporting excellence in winter sports. I've spent almost 4 months out of the last year in Austria. At some point, you have to go to the source and you have to go to the place where they have this institutionalized knowledge, this, decades upon decades, even 100 years of experience. And that's the way I look at this project. There are many sports such as speed skating and cross-country skiing that you can train on dry land, get the strength, get the cardio to where it needs to be, and then bring the athlete into the environment where they can train. And so for those sports, I will be looking to Jamaicans on the island over the next 4 years to find our next cross-country skier. But for all the other sports that require you having started as a child, those will come from the diaspora only for the next phase or two.
Absolutely. And thank you for giving me an authentic and sincere response. But again, just to take it a little bit further, what do you say to someone who is homegrown and again saying that he's looking to you, he or she's looking to you as an inspiration, wants to aspire to follow in your footsteps, but I've never been able to travel out of their comfort zone? And you touched on Austria, and rightly so, but what would you say to them in terms of what to expect when they step outside of Jamaica?
Look, if someone was on the island right now and was looking to follow in my footsteps, I think we need to be realistic about where we can achieve the best. And so alpine skiing is a sport that is 80 or 90% about technique, and technique that not only takes years, decades to master, but also hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to get to where you need to go. Other sports, as I said, such as cross country, are predominantly cardio and strength based, all things that can be trained in a gym anywhere in the world, right? A running machine and a set of weights. The remaining 10 or 20% of that sport is technique, and it's technique that can be learnt to a proficient level within a short period of months. So having an athlete that was to concentrate on cross-country skiing on the island in Jamaica, and then was able to arouse enough interest by virtue of their VO2 max performance, their endurance, their ability to squat 500 kilograms or whatever that number may be, will then elicit the support of sponsors and financial backers to allow that athlete to go to a Norway or a Switzerland or an Austria to do a 3 to 6 month to a 2 year training course to get them into world-class shape for the next Olympics or for any of the international competitions. So it's really about being realistic about where our athletes can come from and where our athletes are most likely to achieve the greatest results, given the topography and the climate that the island of Jamaica itself has.
You speak of a great deal of transparency, and I would like to say that I think you'd be an ideal candidate somewhere along the future, somewhere in the near future, I hope, to sit in that presidency chair at where the federation is concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Jamaican Olympic Association covers everything, right? Track and field, and so many things that I have no knowledge of, and I'm happy to let the professionals do that thing. But it's very clear that there is a lack of institutional knowledge as it pertains to skiing and the other winter sports that Jamaica hasn't even attempted in the last 34 years since our first outing of the Games in '88. I'm very keen to take a more formal role in the Jamaican Ski Federation immediately after the Games and start working on building that next set of talent for 2026. My mind is already focusing on 2026. I know I have to perform in 6 days' time, but really my priority is on what's going to happen in 2026. And I already have at least 6, maybe 7 athletes now that have far more skiing experience than I have and are likely to perform much better than I will this Sunday at the 2026 Games. And that's where my mind already is at. So yeah, I'm very keen to kind of take this role on more formally for the next 2 or 3 Olympic cycles.
I'm sure you would land some success with your next adventure. And one thing I like about you, although I don't know you personally, you seem to be someone who is all about long-term gratification as opposed to short-term gratification, which is so common nowadays with the rise in social media and stuff like that. So loads of credit to yourself. And again, thank you for being so open and transparent. Which, again, that's something that we need for somebody who is running for a presidential election.
Yeah, look, this whole project started off purely through a love of skiing and wanting to see how far I could take that love. And so, what would be a higher accolade than having gotten myself to the Olympics as a skier? But when George Floyd was killed last 2 years ago, the whole story changed. The whole focus changed. This became a story about improving diversity in the winter sports. And as I've struggled and I've fought with the qualification process, and as I've struggled with the administrative hurdles that are put in front of a potential athlete for Jamaica, or let's go wider, a potential athlete for a small nation that doesn't have the knowledge of winter sports, I understand very clearly that not only can we help a wide range of Jamaicans get to the Olympics, but actually my goals and my desires go a lot further than that. And I'd like to bring together, perhaps 30 or 40 small nations that have never had a skier represented and change the number of countries represented in alpine skiing next Olympics from 85, which was a record-setting number this year, up by over 14, to 110, 120 nations. And that, for me, is what this has really become about, bringing diversity to winter sports on a much larger scale.
Brilliant. Now, I, like many other Jamaicans across the diaspora and also back home as well, you made us proud for the opening ceremony, flying that flag high and proud. What was that moment like for you?
Absolutely incredible. Look, I've been involved in large scale performances, not only as a DJ, but also as a founder of a festival that took place in the United States a few years back. And I understand all of the work and effort that goes into that. And now to be on the other side as the attendee, the participant, or the performer of sorts, right? The flag bearer for Jamaica was absolutely incredible. And I'm so proud that the Jamaican Olympic Association see eye to eye with me as it pertains to winter sports, in that we've had sliding sports, bobsledding and the like. And I think we had a skeleton or a luge last time around. We've had sliding sports for the last 34 years. This is a line in the sand that says we are now looking to expand our winter sports horizons going forward. And that's a big part of the reason why I was nominated as flag bearer. And it was incredible. Yeah, it's sad that we all had to wear masks. It kind
Yeah.
of took a little bit of a sheen off of the you know the performance of sorts. Lots of my friends were just questioning, "Are you sure that was you?" But no, nonetheless, it was absolutely fantastic.
Can I ask, has the mask so far stopped you from testing out their KFC?
Guys, unlimited KFC and it's free at the Olympic Village. Tell your friends.
Oh no, absolutely not. No, 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 no. I've been a frequent visitor to the unlimited free KFC that they have here. Absolutely, it's fantastic. I mean, yeah, it's great.
Does your coach know about that?
Yeah, he's enjoying it with me.
That's not the answer that I was looking for, but it's good to know that there's some balance there and enjoy and soak up every bit of it. Now, going
Absolutely.
back to bobsleighing, because you did touch on them, what's the mood like in Team Jamaica camp?
They're great. We're right on the same corridor as one another. The thing that's very clear is that the bobsled team are a unit. These guys have been on the road for the last couple of years, have been training together, have been all over the world competing together. And so incredibly tight bonds have been formed between them. I just met the guys for the first time 5 days ago, despite the fact that we've been interacting a lot on social media. It's not the same as having been a part of that unit. And the bobsledding kind of circuit is slightly different from the ski circuit, so we didn't have any overlap along the way. It's kind of been a bit of the bobsled team and the ski team, but I hope that, as I said, in future Olympics, we can change that and just make it more of Team Jamaica and have as many skiers and snowboarders as there are bobsledders, and maybe even more.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now we are exactly bang on 1 week away from your debut, but I think it's important for everyone to do track the developments leading up to your debut because the weather is unpredictable, so you might be going a little bit later than expected, right?
Absolutely. So the men's downhill event was scheduled for yesterday. It was held back because of wind. Those guys
Mm.
are quite often flying through the air at almost 90 miles an hour, and so a big gust of wind could be fatal. So that should be happening today in 4 hours' time. It looks as though we may have snow in the run up to my event, which for the kind of the layperson thinking about ski racing might think that's a good thing, but actually it's a terrible thing and I shan't bore you with the explanation. So there's a solid chance that my event gets pushed back a day or so. So yeah, I
Okay.
mean, look, these are outdoor sports that are very weather dependent. It's almost like surfing or sailing. If there's no waves or there's no wind, you can't do that sport. And so you're at the behest of Mother Nature. Hopefully things go as planned and on schedule, but we have to be prepared to kind of roll with the punches if that doesn't happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, myself and the entire Jamaican community will be having our eyes glued to the screen, and it's unusual because usually, if it's not bobsleighing, then we pretty much have no interest in Winter Olympics because the limited and the diversity there. But this year, it's a tad bit more special, and that's all thanks to yourself and the rest of our compatriots.
Look, thank you for saying that. That's really what this is about. Having a Jamaican skier now has hundreds of thousands, if not several million more people knowing what giant slalom is and keen to turn on the TV and watch giant slalom. And really, that's what this is all about. Having diversity brings more countries to the table to take interest in the sport. More eyeballs, more people that tune into the sport means more money in the sport, means more sponsorship dollars for the best people in the sport. And that's really what this is about. And so if Jamaica can bring back a Nordic skier, a freestyle skier, a snowboarder, a slope
Yes.
style skier, a speed skier like next year, then Jamaica will have 10 events to watch. And how cool will that be?
That would be incredible. And I think it's safe to say that you've most certainly inspired someone like me. I've been watching you on Instagram. I'm thinking that looks amazing. Like I wish I had someone like this when I was like growing up. Instead, and I mean, I say instead, and I love the sports. I had football, track and field, and a little bit of cricket as well. But
Yeah.
snowboarding, like you said, again, skiing, I'm just like, this is incredible. Wish I had you when I was growing up.
Well, I had cool runnings, right? And that's why we're sitting here today.
Absolutely. And before we go, I do have to touch on a bit of football because I see that you're a football fan as well. So I have to ask you, are you Arteta in or Arteta out?
Look, I'm an Arsenal fan, but it's been misery for the last few years. And so there's been a lot of stress and struggle in my life in qualifying. Sometimes you have to
Mhm.
just lock down the other things. So I don't even know where Arsenal are in the table right now. So I can't give a fair answer as to whether we should kick him out just yet. So I will stay impartial to that.
Where do you think they'll finish this season, despite not watching them as frequently?
Well, honestly, I'd heard that we'd gone from 18th place to fourth place in the table over the course of 6 weeks. So I have no idea where we are. If we could get back into the Champions League
Hmm.
for next season, that would be incredible. I think that would be a win. So I think that's our target.
How did you become an Arsenal fan?
So I was actually a QPR fan when I was a kid. My mother grew up in the council flats that overlooked QPR, and my grandfather, her father would sneak her into the game at half time because he could do that without paying for tickets, right? So the first ever football match I went to go see was QPR versus Ipswich when I was 10 years old. When QPR fell out of the Premiership, it becomes a lot harder to follow the team because there's no TV coverage and whatnot. And so I really wanted to follow a London club. My family grew up in London, not my family, but my parents, both sides grew up in London. And at the time, this would have been the late 90s, Arsenal had the most
Yes.
diverse team. You know, Vieira, Thierry Henry, just like the untouchables. And I wanted to support a team that had a lot of black representatives. And so it was Arsenal, and there was no other choice at that time.
I am with you on that 100%. And that's the reason why I'm a Gooner as well. And
Yeah.
fortunately, and some can say unfortunately, we're sitting in sixth place, just below West Ham and
Okay.
Manchester United. So we're actually
Okay.
looking better than we were last season. So hopefully we can sneak up back into Europe, be it Europa
Yeah.
League or Champions League, like you said.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
It would be. And again, going back to your father just for a brief second, whereabouts in Jamaica is he from?
Savannah Lamar in Westmoreland, tiny
There
little
you go.
market town on the south coast. Yeah, I was there 2 years ago. It's great.
Yeah. There
Yeah.
you there you go. You're going to be having people from Westmoreland definitely walking around with their chests sky high.
Amazing.
Thank you, Benjamin. I know it's quite early over there in Beijing, so thank you again for blessing me with a moment of your time, and hopefully I can bring you back on sometime in the near future.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thank you. Take care.
All right.